All right. Welcome to the first episode of Lone Star College Football, where me and a buddy of mine are going to talk about mostly the Texas Longhorns and the Baylor Bears, but we're going to cover college football landscape in general. Over the course of the next season, we're going to talk about uh, conference realignment. We're going to talk about playoff extension and a million other things. But for today, we're going to talk about the quarterback situations at the University of Texas and Baylor. Yesterday, the Texas Longhorns announced that Quinn Ewers was going to be the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns going into week one on September 3rd. Personally, I really thought that it was going to be Hudson Card. I thought they were going to let him bite the bullet and um, have him start against ULM, have him start against Bama, yank him in the second quarter when we're losing by 3 touchdowns, and then and let him bite that bullet and not have that on Card or Quinn's record. With rookie quarterbacks, you really got to be careful. You hurt their confidence early on in their career, and that can derail their season and career pretty quick. Um,
Yeah.
with Baylor, they really what a praise for Dave Aranda. Right after the spring game, it could have been honestly the day of the spring game. They announced Blake Shapen as the starter, which gave Gary Bohannon the opportunity to transfer. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he just got announced the starter at was it USF, the Bulls?
Yes. Yeah. He went to Southern Florida.
Yeah, so he just got announced the starter. And I think if there's one thing that will tell you why Baylor is successful, I think it's because of coaching. Dave Aranda is a great coach. The way he's able to relate to those kids and really put them up for success. Because you got to think when you have two good quarterbacks, you want two good quarterbacks going into the season, and so to have two quality. I mean, Gary Bohannon started last season. Blake Shapen came in. He had almost 100 attempts and averaged a 72% completion. So he's crazy accurate from the pocket. Gary Bohannon's the mobile quarterback. But to let Gary transfer to just announce the starter from that early, I think if there's one thing that I could testify as to why the Baylor Bears were successful last year and why I think they'll be successful this year, it's really because of Dave Aranda, the coaching staff that they have. They really put people over players. They really emphasize that these are grown men. I mean, really
Yeah.
what's best for them. With Shapen, like I mentioned, a 72% completion. Uh, that's actually crazy good. Like for
Yeah.
100 completions, it's a small sample size, but that's crazy good. I think it's Colt McCoy holds the record still at 72% for a season. So
Mhm.
if he could keep that up, he's gonna have a good career. Personally, I think although Shapen is the better quarterback, I think that Gary Bohannon would probably be more beneficial for y'all this year with the loss of Tyquan Thornton. Shapen can be as accurate as he needs to be in the pocket, but if y'all don't have a receiver that can get open, it's gonna be kind of difficult. And Gary was able to improvise on his feet. Uh,
Yeah. I think with going back to what you said about our success last year, I think that a lot of it came in because everybody's bought into Dave Aranda. It's all about the person over player, and it's just something that those kids can really grab onto. Um, I think it was a great move as far as personal wise, letting Gary go out there and transfer like the week before the transfer portal shut off.
mhm.
Um, I think Shapen's going to be really good for us this year. Like you said, 72% completion rate. It's really good, especially coming in. That was his first time taking snaps like on the college football field. We do give up the mobility, but I think we saw in that Big 12 championship and even against Ole Miss a little bit. I think that he can move, but what he really needs to work on is getting down because I don't think Kyron Drones is quite ready to step up if Lord forbid something happens to Blake. But I think we'll be pretty good. Our receivers are definitely a big question mark. I think that we actually have a lot more um, older kids than what people think. Granted, they didn't have the snap counts and the reps and everything else, but like Monterey Baldwin, he's another guy that's coming in. He's, I believe, a junior or a senior. I think that he could be a really good step. And then Armani Winfield, I'm hoping that that is going to be one of those things that we don't really push too hard because you don't want to just throw him out into the fire.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that if we get our running backs and our receivers going, like I think we can, as far as how our coaching staff is, I think that we'll be pretty good this season.
I think Armani Winfield has a great opportunity to step in as a true freshman. I can tell you now with Texas with the injury, the ACL tear of Isaiah Nayor and Ajay
Oh,
Hopkins suspended, I would really love to have a receiver like Armani Winfield right about now. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people got it wrong. I really don't understand fully the Oklahoma hype around them
yeah.
winning Big 12. To be honest, I think it's kind of crazy that Texas has the number 2 odds to win the Big 12. Uh, but I think if Blake Shapen can just go out there and manage, let y'all's defense do what y'all's defense did last year, manage the game. Your offensive line, how many of y'all returning? You're returning 3 or 4 starters on that
We
line.
returned 4 of our offensive linemen.
Right. So that's perfect. I mean, you lost both your running backs in Abram Smith and Tristan Ebner, but Squirrel Williams and another guy named
And
Williams
McWilliams.
and Mick Williams. I think if they can manage just being a dynamic duo running the ball, manage the clock on offense, your defensive line was pretty great last year. If y'all can manage on both sides of the ball, both sides of the run game, I mean, that's just a really hard thing. That's a hard team to beat. Like if on offense I can't run the ball because your front seven is just stout, and then on defense I can't get to your quarterback because you're returning 4 of your 5, and you had a great offensive line. I mean, I say great. You had a, I don't know where y'all stood in college football rankings, but in the Big 12 you had a great offensive line.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
I think I think Baylor has a good chance of returning to the Big 12 championship. Leading into that, we'll get into our season predictions for Texas and Baylor. As far as what book you look at will have different over unders on win percentage. I've found that both Texas and Baylor have in different books, I think, an 8.5 number.
Hmm.
So as far as that goes, I, the 8.5 is a tough number, right? Because I look at last season and I say, man, Texas, we were 5-7 last year. And that's so easy to look at and just say, oh, well, you're 5-7. If you win 7 games this year, that's great improvement. But when I look at the season, I just don't think that's the case. I look at our game against Bama in week 2. That's a loss. Like that's not up for debate. If could we technically win it? Yeah, because that's why they play the game. If it just wrote up on a loss, they wouldn't. There's no need to play the game. So they play the game because there's technically a chance that we could win. Personally, I'll just write that up as a loss. So that puts us at 11-1. So where do we have to go from there to get to that 8.5 number? Um, if I was going to choose the under, that means I think we're going to go 8-4 or worse.
Hmm.
4 losses on my schedule. When I see it, I see there's Bama, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma. Other than that, I really think that we shouldn't lose any of those other games. That's not to say that we won't. Texas has a
Yeah.
knack for dropping a game that we shouldn't lose. Baylor did it last year to TCU. I mean,
Yeah.
heck, we did it last year to Kansas. So,
Yeah. That potentially cost us a playoff appearance.
oh, 100% that did. Y'all have made, well, I say 100%. Cincinnati undefeated.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
would have been a lot closer than what it was.
it's a toss up. But looking at the schedule, I've got some notes here. Looking at those other 3 games, Oklahoma, Baylor, and Oklahoma State. Will Texas drop all 3? When you look at the rosters, right? First and foremost, Texas as a football program out recruits all 3 of them. Right. So if you just want to look at roster talent, Texas should beat them all. But not to mention the fact that Oklahoma over this offseason has lost 2 5-star quarterbacks, their starting tight end, a 5-star receiver, and their head coach / offensive coordinator. Lincoln Riley did both. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Alex Grinch is gone as well. And that was their defensive coordinator last year.
Yeah.
Now, on that same page, Brent Venables comes in. He's a proven defensive coordinator for Clemson. He's won one for sure, if not two national titles as a defensive coordinator. I don't doubt that he's going to have them with a good defense. What I doubt is if he could do it in one single season.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma. I don't know what their non-con games are. I'm sure they play. Um, I think they play Nebraska. I'm pretty sure they do play
Yeah,
Nebraska
that should be
in
first game.
Lincoln, Nebraska. Uh, do I think they'll lose Nebraska? No. But last year against Nebraska, it was a one possession game. So it's possible. Other than that, inside the Big 12 is such a crazy a league because there's just always a team like TCU will knock off Texas or Baylor.
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Even going to Tech on the road is crazy.
Who?
Tech, even going to Tech on the road, that can be good.
Going to Lubbock, having them throw tortillas on the field, like it's just there's something about the Big 12 where when you play the same teams, because there's only 10 teams, you play those 10 teams every single.
Oh yeah, you're not getting away from anybody.
Right, you really can't. So I could see Texas winning against Oklahoma. I could see Texas losing against Oklahoma. I can see them both. Just with our inconsistency at a lot of positions, our defense last year, I didn't want to vomit saying, but we were like number 100 on defense. There's only 131 teams. Our defense was terrible last year. And the great thing about that, the only positive is it almost can't be worse. But at the same time, Baylor has a new starting quarterback who I personally think is actually a better quarterback, but he is new. Their number one receiver is gone. Their number 1 and 2 running backs are gone. On the defensive side of the ball, they lost Terrell Bernard. They lost 3 defensive backs, JT Woods, Kalen Barnes, and the most talented of the 3, in my opinion, Jalen Petrie, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't give up a single score last year.
No, he did not. He didn't. There was something that I saw that he didn't give up any in coverage.
Any in coverage.
I think I saw the same thing about Terrell Bernard too.
See, and that's crazy because there was a defensive back for Cincinnati. Can't quite recall his name, but he was the same way, and that's crazy. I could to go a whole season without giving up anything.
Oh yeah.
For Oklahoma State, I don't know exactly as much as what they lost, but I'm pretty sure they lost their running back in Warren. Last name Warren's first name started with a J. Jacoby Warren, something like that. I know he's gone. And I know that Spencer Sanders is on what feels like his 12th season with Oklahoma State. He has not put it together. I have no real reason to think he's gonna.
He's just stuck on a plateau. Like if you just look at all of his stats, from my point of view, nothing's changed. It's always high turnovers. Like yeah, he'll have high touchdowns, but I think Oklahoma's main thing last year was more their running game than anything.
Yeah. And their running backs. I'm pretty sure Warren is gone.
Yeah.
And not to mention, to be really fair and honest with y'all, last year, Oklahoma State, their defense was, I wouldn't say it's on par with Baylor's defense, but they had a pretty good defense last year.
I would say they were the second in the Big 12.
Yeah. And their defensive coordinator got shipped to Ohio State. Jeff Grimes is gone. Now, they have an SEC defensive coordinator with them now. But I think he was kind of on his way out of the SEC and they picked him up. I don't think that's they poached him from an SEC team. I think that's really, he was on his way out and Oklahoma State was there to pick him up. For Texas, here's where my hope is found. All right. Texas did not lose that much. All right. No. We had 5-7 last year. We lost Josh Thompson at DB. He was a starter. He was a good player. He good in coverage. He didn't get drafted.
Yeah, he went undrafted. I forgot where he went.
I think he got picked up by the Panthers. I could be wrong. But I think he got picked up by the Panthers. And Dicker the kicker. And now Dicker the kicker is actually a pretty decent lot. Special teams are more important than a lot of people want to give them credit for, but special teams are you can win and lose games by if you're a Longhorn fan, you know good and well you can win and lose games because when we had Mike Dixon Michael Dixon at punter, he won it, and I don't think he ever lost this game, but he definitely won us some games. So other than that, the only other player that we really lost was Casey Thompson. It is yet to be seen if Casey Thompson is a loss or not.
Yeah.
At Quinn Ewers in the transfer portal, like I said at the beginning, he has now been named the starter. Super excited for that. We'll see how that goes. Casey Thompson last year was pretty efficient for the most part. You know, and through the first 5 weeks, we were 5-1. He hurt his thumb against Oklahoma, and it all went downhill right there. And I mean, I'm pretty hard on him sometimes when I talk about it because it's frustrating. If any Longhorn fan watching this, I know on Twitter y'all saw that 90-second video of Xavier Worthy's missed passes.
Wide open.
Wide open.
I think there was 2 of them against Baylor.
I know there was one, and the worst one was against Baylor. There was like nobody within 15 yards radius of him. Like that was the worst one. And so that kind of hurts. So with him being gone, I think that I don't know if that's a win or a loss yet. I don't know.
I think that he played really good last year as a quarterback. And then I think a lot of people forget that he got hurt. Mm-hmm. So they're really quick to judge. It's like he's overthrowing, underthrowing. He's not very accurate and everything. But I think that he was a pretty good quarterback. But I also think that y'all are going to get a step up with Quinn coming in that starter.
I hope so. Practice reports have kind of been tough on him. Practice reports are they're not the gospel. So you know how it goes. Like I was telling you before we started recording that he threw 2 picks yesterday in the scrimmage, one of which he was throwing out a sack. The other one, the receiver slipped on the play. So he wasn't in position, and the DB was able to get it and take that one for 6. With all that being said, though, I'll give my over-under for Texas and Baylor, and then Logan, you go ahead and give yours. It's gonna be a tough season, I think, for Texas. And I don't say that as I think that we're going to go 5-7. I don't believe that at all. I think it's going to be a hard-fought season. I think that there's a lot of players on our team, upperclassmen, that just aren't quite used to winning. And I think Sark is having to kind of ingrain that into them. And I think that a lot of people look at us last season at 5-7 and just assume that 6 to 7 wins is kind of our cap. That's our ceiling. But if you're a Longhorn fan and you watched every game, you know that is not the case. Texas went 5-7 last year. That is a fact. But the fact that we went into halftime as winning the game in halftime, and like 4 of those games that we lost, and Baylor was one of them. If we can go into halftime winning, all we gotta do is finish the game. We lost. We blew a stupid lead to Oklahoma. And I think Coach Sark had a tough time getting those teams or that team to figure out how to finish a game. So personally for Texas, I would go over 8.5. And it's not something, if I live in the state of Texas, so I can't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think that's how we'll go. I think that when you look at it, we're going to lose to Bama. That's 1 loss. Okay, so if I'm going over 8.5, that means we're losing 2 more games at the most. And if I only think there's 3 losable games in Oklahoma, Baylor, and OK State, all we got to do is win one of those. And I feel pretty comfortable with that. For Baylor, I am also going to take the over. I think from the very beginning of the video, I was raving on Dave Aranda. I think that Baylor is the prime example of what was it? It's 5-star coaching over 5-star players. I think that they don't need to get the best players in the country. Boy, I tell you what, if Baylor could ever put 2 or 3 classes together inside the top 10 or top 15, they'd be a force to be reckoned with, because Dave Aranda is a crazy, crazy good coach. So I'm going to take the over on both of those.
Yeah, looking and listening about Texas, it's really hard. I'm kind of like on the edge of it. I think that Texas will be able to pull off a lot more of these games. I feel like Coach Sark has had them where he's had to try to go through that culture shock a little bit. Because I know I've seen a lot of things. We've talked about a lot of things about how the players act outside of football and everything. But I feel like if he just reins that in a little bit, I think Texas could be a really good team. Like you said, those it's really good to have two good quarterbacks. I think Hudson Card would be a really good quarterback. If Quinn's having a good year, then that'll be even better. Because you want to see Quinn come in and do what all the hype is about. We've seen him take one snap at quarterback and it was a hand the ball off.
And the ball. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
and
yeah.
it sucks. I think I'm leaning towards the over because I feel like y'all will get a lot more of those games that y'all had last year, like right at the fingertips of. I think y'all will get those games. I don't see the hype in Oklahoma this year. Dylan,
Either.
you go from a offensive heavy head coach, right? Just airing the ball out all the time to losing him, losing everybody that you've lost. I I just don't see Brent Venables being able to come in first year and just go and compete for a Big 12 championship. I think they'll be in the top half of the league for sure. Like I'm like third or fourth.
I'd be surprised if they fall. I would be surprised if they weren't 3 or 4. K-State,
Yeah.
I'll see the hype on K-State. Deuce Vaughn
I don't see them either. It's
AJ, what was
how I see it, the same team.
What was the quarterback for them? I keep wanting to call him AJ McCarron, but I think that was a Bama quarterback a long time.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
What was it? I can't remember his name, but Deuce Vaughn is dope. But the rest of it,
Deuce Vaughn is great.
I don't see the hype around K-State.
Yeah, I think where Baylor's it's Adrian Martinez.
Adrian Martinez.
He was a transfer.
Yeah.
I don't think Dylan Gabriel's gonna come in and perform like he did at UCF. I don't think that
it wasn't great. Like he was good, but that's group of 5. That's not Power 5 football.
Which I get that they're coming into Power 5, but it's still like it's different. Obviously, you saw that from Cincinnati and Alabama.
Oh yeah, big time.
Like, it's different.
It's different.
It's different. Like, Baylor is in a tougher of a season. I'm on the fence about Baylor this year too, just because of our away games and where we're playing. Like week 2, we go to Provo. BYU's not a bad team.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be different being up there in Utah and Provo at BYU because their fans travel well, and you know that they're gonna be at the home games.
True.
It's gonna be packed. And that scares me a little bit.
But the good thing is with that, as well as Alabama for Texas, those are non-con games. So even with losing those Big 12 plays, still that doesn't affect our Big 12 champs. So that's the only positive for the non-con slate that we have.
But Louisiana Tech, Texas State, I'm not worried about them. Nah. So at worst, we're 2-1 going into conference. But then we go to Iowa State.
I think you'll be 3-0. I think Iowa State's a win. I think Iowa State's a win.
I think we'll start off 4-0.
I think so.
Sure. And then we have Oklahoma State at home, which is a game that I really want to go to. I think that one will be a good game to go to.
That'd be
sure. I think it'll be another one of those things where you're just like knocking each other around and whichever team scores last wins. Yeah. Really. I think it'll be like that. And then we go on the road to West Virginia. West Virginia is a tough place to play. As soon as you hear Country Road come on those speakers, it gets a little nerve-wracking over there. I think we'll win that one too. I think it'll be a close game, just like Oklahoma State, but not as close. I think it'll be within 10. I'm hoping by more.
Yeah.
Because West Virginia is not a good team, even with JT Daniels. I don't think he's going to be enough to push them over the edge.
I think JT Daniels has I think that's the only reason I would consider West Virginia a good team. I mean, he was the starting quarterback for Georgia last year, and then an injury is what let Stetson Bennett come in. And even when JT Daniels got healthy, they decided to roll with Stetson Bennett because they were winning. But JT Daniels is not bad quarterbacks. So I wouldn't count them out, but I wouldn't say that necessarily makes them a full team for sure. They're still definitely not a full team.
Yeah. I think that there's a good chance we start off 7-0
Yeah.
because we have Kansas at home that next week. And as long as we don't pull a Texas on that one, I think we got that one in the bag.
Y'all will be 7-0 going to Kansas or Kansas at home?
No, we'll be 6-0 with Kansas coming in.
So when do y'all play Oklahoma?
We play Oklahoma 2 weeks after that. We go on a 2-game road trip to Tech
Tech?
and then Oklahoma.
Tech, Oklahoma, and then who?
Kansas State at home and TCU at home.
And then Texas. Where's that? Is
Yep.
that home?
Away.
That's
That's a DKR.
Austin. Wow. So really, y'all have a 7-0 season start, and then the last 5 games are kind of
It
brutal.
could easily be 7-5.
Wow. Well, I wouldn't say.
It could.
think
If we
Tech.
drop the ball to TCU and Kansas State.
Listen. I think Tech is an easy win. Now it's in Lubbock. I get that. I'd say if you want to count the point spread, with it being home for Tech, give them another 3 points. But
Yeah.
Texas beat Tech by we beat them 70-35 last year.
True.
Tech is just not good. TCU is a scary game. As a Longhorn fan, I can hate on TCU all I want, but that is a scary game. The atmosphere, I don't know for us if that's a home or away. I think it's I want to say it's a home game this year.
I have the schedule pulled up so I know where we're at.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up here. We just got about 5 minutes left on our call here. So this is a little recap. Quinn Ewers, Blake Shapen, they're going to be the starting quarterbacks for the University of Texas and the University of Baylor this year. I think if either one of those quarterbacks can manage to be in the top half to top 4 quarterbacks in the Big 12, I don't see any reason why Texas and Baylor can't have a season this year that they'll be happy of. Obviously, for Texas fans, any season we're not winning a natty, we're kind of depressed about. And that's just a little bit living in the past, a little bit.
We're just trying to get a taste of the playoff at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I just need Texas to make a bowl game, this year. It's improvement. So that would be great for us. With them being the quarterbacks, I can't say that I could name quarterbacks in the big. I don't see Spencer Sanders being great. Like, is he going to be good? Yeah, he's on his 5th or 6th year. He's got to be better. There's got to be some kind of improvement. Dylan Gabriel, he was good enough to get an offer from Oklahoma, so I can't say that he's going to be bad, but he's never played, football in the Power 5 level. He may have played a Power 5 team. I saw a stat. I couldn't tell you what exactly it said, but I did see a stat that talked about him in the Power 5, and it wasn't great.
His stats dropped.
Yeah,
terribly
when he played Power 5. So with all that being said, I'm taking the over on both. Remind us of what yours were.
I'm gonna take the over, and I just want to throw it out there. I definitely see where it could be a Baylor Texas back to back.
Yeah.
I think we will see them play again after November 26th.
I think I'll say I could see it. I don't know as if I would say that's the most likely. I would say I can see it. I think Oklahoma State and Oklahoma have a chance. I think this is the most wide open the Big 12 has ever been. To have.
I'm saying that I think the quarterback play for both of those teams is the biggest question mark. And Oklahoma State lost their best running back by far.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, I don't think their run game was all that last year. I could be wrong, but I just don't see those quarterbacks doing anything this year. And I think it's going to hurt them bad. Oklahoma State should have a good defense, but I just don't see it.
If Oklahoma had Lincoln Riley, I would say that Dylan Gabriel will somehow be great because that's just how it was. He had a transfer quarterback and the Heisman. but you've got a defensive coordinator at head coach now. So that changes the dynamic quite a bit. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for us. Like I said at the beginning, this is our first ever episode of Lone Star College Football. We plan on trying to post 2, maybe 3 times a week. I think would be pretty good. Once the season starts, we'll have pre-game episodes where we just talk about who our teams are playing that week, how we think the matchups will be, maybe a score prediction. Between now and the season, we'll try to do more like game to game. Try to predict them as we'll try to predict each game before the season, and then depending on how the season goes, we'll do a pre-game episode. Like I may say Texas will beat Baylor now, but then come week 13 and we play Baylor and Texas is 7-5, I may change my mind. So we'll probably do another episode then and go over all of that. Feel free to follow us at Lone Star _ College Football on Twitter. I'm Christian. That is Logan. And hope to be posting here more often. Hook 'em.
Single.
Figure out how to